Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Refuge from Narcissism, and this refugee video is sponsored by contribution from Jane, and here's her story. Dear Ollie, my name is Jane. I am now 43 years old, biracial, single, and have no children. My mother, Deborah, just turned 69 just after Christmas. Boomer. I didn't call, and I have been almost completely no contact since I was 15. Let me explain. When I was a child, my mother married my stepfather named John. I really only remember John as my mom left me with my biological father when I was a baby, who in turn left me with his mother. My father is 12 years older than my mother. He never had a real job in his life and is an identical twin who he ran numbers with in Newark, New Jersey. Oh, wow. Okay. So you're 43, 5 years younger than me, and you're growing up in Newark back, wow, when Newark was Newark, no less, and being biracial, that had to be brutal. That had to be brutal. I have no real recollection of staying with him. All right, good then. I have no real recollection of staying with him other than an incident with a puppy, which is not relevant to this story, so I will not continue there. Suffice it to say that he had a terrible temper. By the time I was 5, my mother had married my stepfather, John. He was Polish, extremely handsome, extremely handsome, cold, and rather stringent Pentecostal. I attended a private Pentecostal elementary school where we received detentions for the slightest infraction of the rules, such as forgetting to bring a ruler to class, to stepping out of line while walking in the hallway. Every 5th detention would land you in the headmaster's office to get a paddling after a brief prayer. I was in the headmaster office almost every Friday. I learned early on that I was not a good girl. I started gymnastics at the age of 5 and kept up with that until I was about 11 years old. I was very good at it and enjoyed it. Neither John or my mother came to any of my meets that I can remember. My coach asked my mom when I was around 8 if we would consider moving to Florida to attend Bella Crioli's gym, premier women's gymnastics coach at the time. Needless to say, that was not going to happen. My mother said she wanted me to be a prima ballerina and tried to get me into it, but I am not very graceful. Vaulting, tumbling, or uneven bars, yes. Gracefully dancing to classical orchestral music, not so much. I remember one of my optional floor routines in gymnastics was a mashup of Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana and Annie, Are You Okay? And a teammate of mine had hers to the theme music to St. Elmo's Fire. Hers was really such great music. I remember being jealous and asked my coach why I couldn't have that music, and he said, "That is graceful music, Jane, and you aren't graceful. You are powerful, but you're a kid. You should not." This is my problem, like with beauty pageants and even female gymnastics to some point, and like it just gets so sexualized. No teenage girl, no young girl should have been dancing to Dirty Diana. It's a sexual song. And to say you aren't graceful, you're powerful, that's more sexual. That stuck with me, not in a good way. My mother once told me she wanted a boy because she wanted a boy so badly. She was destined to have a girl. Okay, my mother once told me she wanted a boy, and because she wanted a boy so badly that she was destined to have a girl. I never seemed to be what she wanted or needed. I never knew my mother growing up. She never said much that I can recall, as John did much of the child rearing. There was much I was not allowed to do, like watch Sunday morning cartoons or anything really. I was allowed to watch Star Trek, Buck Rogers, and any John Wayne or black and white movie on TMC. Oh, and the Nova station. Sometimes I would wake up early on Saturday mornings, go downstairs and turn the TV on very low to watch cartoons. Later in life, I would do the same thing, coming home earlier than my parents from school. John found me out by feeling the TV to see if it was warm both times, asked me if I had been watching it, and of course denied it. He considered me a fantastic liar, so I was getting paddlings at home too. Looking back, I don't think I lied about anything that any normal kid would lie about, but I was getting beatings with John's belt or a switch quite often. They love hitting you. So where's the relationship? So like, what happens to your father after you go to live with your mother? And I assume if your father's living in Newark, if you're 43, you're born like 76, 77, 78. So if your father's living in Newark, and I mean, more than likely your father's black, your mother's white, if you're biracial. Like, where's your father? Like, where is your father at this point? And why is your mother just allowing you to get beat up by this? This is what they did. This is what boomers did. This is how they assert their dominance over you, through putting their fucking hands on you. One day, after one particularly bad one where I was bleeding, I ran to a friend's house. Her parents asked me what happened, so I told them. They called the police. I didn't ask them to, they just did. I was taken to the hospital. I must have been around 8 or so. Jesus Christ. I didn't realize at the time what a big deal this was. I remember shortly thereafter being back home and asking what the date was and if April 1st had passed. John said, "What do you care? You already had your April Fools." John was not a warm guy. He was a disciplinarian and stoic. My mother let him call all the shots, no matter what the subject. I once asked her why she let him beat me so. She replied, "If you weren't such a selfish liar, he wouldn't have to." She seemed very docile, except when she would have random outbursts at me when John wasn't around, tell me things like how I was a curse on her life and how I was ungrateful. Other times she was so sweet and would call me Little Mouse and make up little sing-songs about Little Mouse. When he told her to throw away her record collection because it was satanic, she must have had at least 300 record albums. She did so without question. We attended church every Sunday and some Wednesdays. The marriage started showing visible cracks when I was around 11. By the time I was 12, my mother and I moved out, and that's when I saw my mother's true self. We moved into a rather nice condominium complex with a co-worker of hers named Art. We each had our own bedrooms. Art was a nice guy and wasn't home much, as he often DJ'd for a local jazz station after work. My mother started drinking heavily and often. She would stay in bed for days and cry. She had a Doberman pinscher named Gus, whom she adored and loved much more than me. Gus was very protective of her. Once I had gone trick-or-treating with friends, came home and started sorting my candy. Gus took one of my Reese's peanut butter cuts and I tried to get it back from him, and he bit me through the palm of my hand. My mother yelled from her room, what was I doing to Gus, and I ran to show her my bloody hand. She just laughed at me and said, well, that'll teach you. That would not be the last time Gus bit me, nor would it be the last time she laughed about it. Yeah, your mother resented you. Your mother resented you from birth, and your mother viewed you as a scarlet letter, I think. I think the fact that you're biracial probably, I'm assuming you have. Being that your father is living in Newark and your mother, I mean, there is an Italian section of Newark. There was Ironbound as well. But the way your mother's playing it is your mother is playing this as she regrets you because of the color of your skin. She resents you, she regrets you, she sees you, she likes watching you get injured, she likes watching you hurt. I prayed to God that he would deliver my mother from her pain and help her out of this mess. My mother had taken the missing work to stay home and drink. She was going out at night and sometimes not coming home. I don't remember how, but she ended up being sent to a loony bin, as she liked to call it. She stayed there for 2 months. She was given prescription meds while there, which she would be on and off for the next few years. She later told me she was given electroshock therapy there as well, but I don't know if that is true as I now know my mother is a pathological liar. More than likely your mother's a borderline. Okay? More than likely your mother is a borderline who, you know, the electroshock therapy makes sense in the time period, yet your mother is more than likely a violent borderline. At 12, 13 years old, I had yet to figure that out. She came home on my 13th birthday, but she did not come alone. She brought home a boyfriend from the loony bin named George with her. George was a sketchy-looking guy. He seemed like he was on something, but having lived pretty sheltered in my former life, I don't know much about that. I didn't like George one bit. She informed me that she and George were getting married, and he and my mother left that day and did not come back for 2 weeks. This became the norm. She would come back for a few days and leave with George and Gus. George had a few belongings that he kept in the condo, one being a snake that I was now in charge of feeding. Every fucking, she is touching every fucking red flag of snakes. Snakes. If you own a snake, you're an asshole. End of statement. Period. Don't explain it. You just like to freak people out. And now you got another borderline boomer mother out looking for parties and dick and attention. Okay, bringing home every fucking selfish loser. Okay, a snake. Making a child feed your ridiculous fucking animal that you're calling a fucking pet. You just like to weird people out. It's such a red flag. It's such a red flag. One day upon coming home from school, the snake got out. Of course it did. Of course it did, because that's what they're naturally prone to do. And was somewhere in the condo. I called Art and let him know, and he was not happy and said he was going to try to get in touch with my mother. I was freaked out by the snake anyway and decided to stay at a friend's until Mom and George came home to find it. It wasn't until nighttime that they came back. I went home, and as my mom called to tell me to come back. Of course, we got into a huge fight about it, as it was my fault the snake got out, and how selfish I was for not figuring it out by myself and making her have to come back. She was screaming. I started crying, and I said, "I hate you. I wish I had a different mom." She recoiled with righteous indignation and said, "What did you say?" I mumbled, "You heard me." She said, "No, I didn't. Say it to my face." I turned around and screamed, "I wish I had a different mother." She lunged and slapped me, so I instinctively hit her back. Good. 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 Oh, the violent outburst of the borderline mother is just all too familiar. All too familiar, because you know what sets her off. It's the truth. Not only because she knows you want a different mother, and she knows you deserve a better mother, because she knows she's a shit mother. We latched on to each other's hair and fell to the floor. I kicked her as hard as I could, but she didn't let go. With superhuman strength, she got up and dragged me to the front door and threw me out, saying, "Fine, go find another mother." Later, she called the police on me, saying I had run away. This, too, would become the norm in the coming years. Everything would be turned around on me. It was my fault that John left her marriage fell apart. It was my fault we had no money. It was my fault my mother's life was shit. She had to drink to deal with me. I drove her to drink, something she told me quite often. This is what my mother would do. My mother would, tell me I drove her to drink. I was the cause for all my fucking parents' problems, for all their fucking heartache. Okay, she'd go to the cabinet, take out her fucking whatever medication she was on. They'd take out her Quaaludes or whatever fucking downer they could put her on, and start swigging it back with white wine or vodka, and this was all my fault. And then light up a cigarette. And this was my fault. I caused this. Shortly after the snake incident, Art had enough of my mother's lifestyle and said he was moving out. He wished me luck, and that was the last I ever saw of what would be the only person who really knew what was going on in our home. We moved into a smaller condo in the same complex, which my mother never bothered to furnish, and ultimately did not last long. She was becoming much more unreliable at work, and shortly thereafter lost her long-standing job at Aetna. We then moved to a small, dingy, shitty apartment, which was obviously much more affordable. I had gotten into a program at school called Upward Bound. I had been in the program for underprivileged kids for a few years. Upward Bound had a few stipulations, like making it to the scheduled meetings and maintaining a certain grade point average. It was becoming increasingly difficult to make it to all the things I was trying to participate in. I had a job, was playing basketball, Upward Bound, and anything to not be home when she and George or whoever was there. A few times I asked Mom to take me to or pick me up from practice or UB, and she would either not show up at all or come super late. Finally, UB sent a letter to my mother stating that my participation in UB was in jeopardy, as I had missed a few of the mandatory meetings. She would need to come in and speak with the counselors. Usually my mother reeked of patchouli oil, dog, and alcohol, but you'd be surprised how she could shine up on that penny. How she could shine up that penny. She would spiffy herself right up and look through the woman once she and she would spiffy herself up, herself right up, and look as though the woman she once wasn't just a vestige of the person she had become. She went in there, and I, to this day, have little idea what she said, but I had told them the truth, that I was unable to make some of the meetings because my mother said she would take me and didn't show, or it was too late to go. But I was out of the program after her meeting with them. Years later, I came to find out she lied to my godparents, my grandmother and my aunt about me. I was incorrigible and disrespectful and uncontrollable, etc. Again, a story for another time. She and George continued to go out for days and weeks at a time. When she and George could no longer afford that shitty apartment, we moved to a one-bedroom basement apartment in the same complex. I guess she figured she was never home anyway, so why keep a two-bedroom? There was never anything to eat in the fridge except a large bottle of Goldschlager, orange juice, and milk. I finally mixed the OJ and milk together and found out that I liked it. I know it's just a weird memory I have. She acquired another dog, a pit bull, of course. Pit bulls, snakes, Dobermans, of course. Named Shelly, and a bunny rabbit she named Bun Bun. They, of course, were always taken care of, as in they had food to eat, and on the rare occasion the dogs didn't go with my mom, I would care for them. I even tried eating the dogs' treats. They weren't that bad, like crackers. Wow. The rabbit didn't have a cage and was roaming free, pooping little round turds everywhere. I had a job at the Kmart at the time, as I had just turned 15. I love animals and even loved Gus regardless of our history. I had to care for them when my mother was home, but too fucked up to do anything. Finally, things deteriorated to the point that my mother came home one day and told me she was moving to the next town over with a new boyfriend who happens to be George's best friend, Tom. It was at the end of April, and I had about a month and a half left of school. I asked if it could wait, as it would be pointless to start a new school with so little time left. She told me, doesn't matter, you can't come. There isn't enough room for you anyway. You will have to find a place to stay or rent here. I honestly didn't believe her. She was half drunk, and I was used to her leaving for extended periods of time. She started crying as usual. I would comfort her and tell her it would all be okay. We would find a way. Well, she left and didn't come back. Not knowing what to do, I told everyone in the building to come take what they wanted, as I had no place to go. We had a 50-gallon fish tank with some exotic fish, my bedroom furniture, and a TV with a VCR. If I was smart, I would have charged something, but oh well. I slept in the park across the street after I turned in the keys. I have been almost no contact ever since. Watching my mother morph into this person who was a stranger at first, but then became the woman I have become to realize she likely always was before John, and had taken the will to live all but from me. I was and have been stuck in survival mode for so long, I didn't have time to think about anyone or anything else. I think a part of me is just dead. I can't feel anything anymore. I am thankful for John with his strict ways. Without that foundation, I might have run amok in the streets during that time. I could have gotten into a lot of trouble, but I didn't. I did, however, become quite angry at the world and wouldn't hesitate to show it. She still refused to admit what happened. She says I was the one who didn't want to live with her and refused to come to the new house at 15, and you allow a 15-year-old to set that type of stipulation. You're full of shit. She's full of shit. I believe she truly believes her story. No, she doesn't. She has to, and I don't care anymore. Trying to get her to remember things as they really were will never happen. This is it. This is the life. Fuck it and fuck her. We talk every now and then, but the time for me caring is over. It is what it is. There's more to the story, but I'll save that for another time. I was hoping to gain some clarity, some sense of why I'm alone, and the few times in my life I have opened up to folks have left me feeling much more the way my mother did. I wonder if I can even attract normal people, or if I have just or if I just have the propensity towards these psychos because I am broken myself. I will write in again to continue the saga. Jane. Why do you have problems with relationships? Because the one person who was supposed to take care of you, who's supposed to care for you, would rather you eat fucking dog food. That's why. You've been abandoned over and over and over again. So, of course, you're probably going to only be drawn to the same type of people that are just going to abandon you over and over and over again. You're another one treated like a stray dog. Another stray dog who literally, okay, wasn't even good enough for dog food. Because you had to steal that. That's the borderline boomer mother for you. All about dick and attention. Okay? The main focus is keeping up her dick and attention and partying lifestyle as she downgrades and downgrades and downgrades. Okay? I mean, eventually, dog food was too good for you. Because she just left you behind. She took the other dogs, but she left you behind. Because you're not good enough for dog food. Do you get it? Because you're not even good enough for dog food. That's where the borderline boomer mother leaves you. Not even good enough for dog food. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much, June, for your contribution and story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like me to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or you'd just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all of this goes away, as I am completely demonetized from YouTube. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channels on here and Rumble, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care.